talks, discussions about recording wildlife, particularly in London. Data, gathering data, what we do with it, what difference it makes. And we're just having our lunch break now. And I thought I'd have a quick wander around, chat to you about stuff from this morning, and maybe show you around some of the Natural History Museum if I can. It's rather busy, as you might expect of a museum on a weekend, full of children, full of adults, full of people. But we're starting out here, partly so I can actually talk to people and be heard. And we're starting by what I will turn the camera around, what I mentioned in an earlier broadcast, which is the wildlife garden that the Natural History Museum has. This is a nice little feature that they've got outside here where you can come and actually see some wildlife whilst you're visiting the museum, and it lets them do all sorts of interesting things when they're doing their trainings for people. But the conference today I was at, I'll talk about as I walk into the garden in a moment, was looking at very much stuff about recording wildlife in London. Lots of really interesting talks about it. And probably the one that interested me most, because it links with some of my professional work and my day job as well, was a study about the extent to which access to wildlife makes us happier, improves our well-being, makes us better off. A really interesting sort of fairly brief summary of some research they've been doing, but some research that I'd wanted people to do for quite a while, where they link biodiversity data on what's in an area to data we have on the well-being and happiness of people, and starting to ask questions about whether areas that have a richer biodiversity are areas in which people are happier. The short version is yes, that's true, although the effect is not particularly strongly related to biodiversity, it's more related to just green space in general. So that I thought was a really interesting study, and I'll be following up some links on what you said there to look at some of the papers that were a fascinating study. We also heard about some more specific projects in London, a project looking at reintroducing beavers, or not reintroducing, re-establishing beavers in the London area. They used to be here, which is certainly an interesting idea. Talk about the London Butterflies Project, a project to really capture some data on what we know about the distribution of butterflies, and that was really interesting. So we are just heading in here to what is, as I said, the Natural History Museum's wildlife garden. And this is a bit, sort of an annex to the museum, a bit of their grounds that they use to try and showcase a really small area, even small compared to the places I look after. It's a diversity of habitats that can be created, diversity of stuff that can live here. And it's a really interesting additional feature to the museum itself and to the collections. So I thought I'd start out here because it's at least a little bit quieter to walk and talk and broadcast out here in the wildlife garden space. But going back to the talks today, a series of really interesting things. There's some leaf mines here on hazel. Not sure I know what they are. I suspect stuff here is very well recorded because of the museum's people. And well, I know the stuff here is very well recorded. Several papers on it have been published in the London Naturalist, publication from the London Natural History Society. And you can see that they're doing proper surveying. This is, I think, some sort of Malays insect trap. Big tent, the insects fly in and get surveyed. So at this conference, a lot of really interesting talks that we found out about. We talked briefly about the well-being one, talked about a couple of projects around beavers, projects around planning to do studies of that flies in the area, and some really interesting projects are engaging the public with wildlife. And that perhaps ties several of those talks together, that engaging the public, getting people to know, see and appreciate what they have around them really makes a difference. So what we'll do now, we'll have a bit of a wander, see if we can have a wander into the museum and just see if we can see anything of the museum itself. It is going to be very busy when we head back into the museum. There's a lot of people here, and I'm not sure I found the right way, but we'll have a quick look since we're here, opportunity to have a look at the exhibition space of the museum. This is not so much the it's not Facebook, it's Taps, but it's something like that. What was it? So this is what we're going to do, is going to the exhibition space of the museum. This is the bit that the public can come out and have access to and be introduced to things. It's not the sort of formal scientific working part of the museum. Let me go this way. It's not the place where the collections live as such, but it's nevertheless a nice space and a good opportunity. And as you'll see when we go indoors, it's extremely busy. There are a lot of people here on this Saturday. A lot of children. There'll be a lot of noise, so I'm not sure how effective the broadcast will be, but we'll have a walk in. We'll see what we can see. We'll see what we can talk about. And I'll gradually head back through and head back towards the conference venue. So we're coming back up here to the Darwin 2 Centre, which is a recent annex to the museum. And again, it's a bit about a lot of work around trying to engage people with natural world, with what the museum does, with biodiversity, with ecology. There is actually space in here where you can go and observe into the collection space and see the various curators and collectors going about their activities. Here in this corner of the museum is the Angela Marmont Centre for UK Biodiversity. This is one of the places that in non-COVID time had a drop-in service where if you had things you wanted to identify, you could come here and they would identify them for you. They're not able to do that at the moment because they can't. This building this bit of the centre also houses the library of the London Natural History Society. And again, in normal times, members of the public, if they want to have access to quite a wide range of natural history books that are not necessarily available, could come here and make use of the reference collection, the reference library. There's also a lab space, a training space, and access to various collection resources if you need that to help with your ID. So it's a really useful bit of the museum about trying to make accessible to the public the scientific functions of the museum. Right, we'll wander up here now into the museum proper, where it'll get a lot busier. We're into the exhibition space, where it'll get a lot busier. So you see immediately there are a lot of people around here. Let me go this way. So if we go into the museum, it's a very grand building. I think, if nothing else, the grandeur of the Natural Museum reflects the grandeur of nature. There's the dinosaur section here, which is always the most popular bit, but we're not going to go and look at anything as tediously prosaic as a dinosaur. But this always the bit that attracts the public and the children. They like the big dinosaurs. But we'll walk a bit further on and see what else there is to find. And what is a very busy museum. Here's the main hall, of course. It's the famous whale skeleton swinging over it. And we'll just go a bit further on, cut through one of the other galleries, and again you've got lots of fossils and such on the walls here. And obviously the most important bit of any museum, the bit that talks about insects, or annoyingly they call them creepy crawlies. But you see lots of nice displays just trying to get people aware of, interested in insects and other arthropods and other things that aren't insects. So it can all be rather fascinating space here. Some examples of adding facilities to show people things. And yeah, just quite a nice little display to sort of introduce people to some of the sheer diversity of the insect world, which I like to think in a somewhat more amateurish way I show on some of these broadcasts as well. Anyway, there's a lot of noise in here, which I suspect is not making for an ideal broadcast, so I'm going to head back out into the corridor and then head back to my conference, I think. So there we go, we'll turn the camera around. And see if I can find somewhere to vaguely stop to talk to you guys. So I'm going to head back now to the London Recorders Conference, disappear from here, to just sign off. I probably won't do another broadcast today from the conference, saying what I did this afternoon, but I'd like to hop onto Apps tomorrow, do a broadcast from somewhere local to me, a wildlife might talk a little bit about this afternoon's talks there. So I'm going to hop off there.